Good afternoon. This is Mark Wagaski with Applied Software. I'm glad that looks like we've got a tremendous number of a large number of folks on the webinar today to hopefully get a lot of the questions answered that appear to still be lingering surrounding the Autodesk license policy changes in education and higher ed. It was actually brought to my attention last week that there was still on some of the chat boards still lots of questions. So I actually posed one of our current clients, education clients, whether or not this would be a good idea, and she suggested it would. So this is our attempt to hopefully clear the air. I'm going to go through. Let me go through the agenda real quickly here. First, I want to make some introductions to my team that I've got joining me on the phone today. I want to get a little bit of a level set as to kind of where we are and where everybody is in this process, not individually but kind of as a whole. I want to review a proven process that has worked for us and the universities that we've worked with starting back in the August time frame, and have resulted in license agreements in place in several universities here in the southeastern U.S. and outside the U.S. or outside the southeast, and then some next steps, and then Q&A. I do want to say that if you have questions during the presentation, I'll try to stop at the end of each session, and if there are questions that's pertinent and necessary to answer or tackle at that point, we'll do that. Otherwise, we'll try and save as many for the end as possible, but I do want to make sure that you guys have the opportunity to ask questions and clarify anything that you might not be clear about. That's the whole intent of this presentation and session, is to make sure that you kind of know where things stand, and most importantly, that you've got somebody to lean on. So first of all, I want to introduce my team. Cherie Smith, who's our sales advisor manager. She's really in charge of all of our education business and has a team working under her and with her. Linda Netzer, who's a sales advisor, has worked with the likes of University of Florida, Florida State, and others in Florida and outside of Florida. David Moore, who is a sales advisor who works and supports Linda and is a government and education specialist on our team. And Charlotte Mall, who's a contract specialist and has been working when we get to the point of quotations and contract procurement issues. She works with the team. So we've got a really strong team supporting you. And of course, I'm Mark Wagaski, I'm Vice President of Sales. And since the very beginning of this, I've been very involved. And so basically, who are we? We are, number one, Autodesk's longest operating value-added reseller. We've been in business for 33 years. We've had we've been education VAR for 15 plus years, and that meant something different when education institutions pay for the software, which obviously has changed, but we've been managing that business in the southeastern U.S. for greater than 15 years. We are a platinum level and award-winning, which is the highest level within Autodesk. We've got a lot of experience and to kind of brag about. Our expertise is around design technology, which focuses on architects, engineers, construction, manufacturing, and owner technology. And we have, at this point, several education references. So kind of this level set, where are we? So Autodesk came out near the beginning of 2014 and said, made the announcement that all of the software that educational institutions, secondary, post-secondary, need and want can be had for free. And that was a big change from the past, because our customers have been paying for the use of that software, and in most cases, paying for the use of the software enabled those universities to have access throughout the university to that software. Okay, so the first shoe to drop, which was all the good news, software is now free to these institutions, was followed by the second shoe to drop, which was any software that is being used by the university facilities or the departments was no longer free, and that each one of the universities had to put themselves in a position and license software for the use that was non-educational use. Okay, so that's what we're here to talk about, is the process we've used and worked with the likes of Georgia Tech, University of Florida, to name just a couple, the process we've used to help them come up with learn more about the free software, I encourage you to go to this link here below, this www.autodesk.com/education, so on and so forth, and you will learn a lot more about the software there. If you are interested in us doing a webinar on the free academic use, please respond in the chat and just say yes, and we will log those. And if we get enough responses at a later date, we'll do another webinar that is really talking specifically to how you make all this work. But today's webinar is really around the requirements that Autodesk now has of their customers. It says, you have to, if your facilities or any other department within the university, now you're faced with having to obtain a license for that software. Okay? So moving on, I'm going to jump out of this, and I'm actually going to jump into a Excel spreadsheet that I used and that we've used to walk through this process with our customers. So the first step that we highly, highly recommend is for each individual university to do an asset check of what is out there. Under these licenses that these universities and secondary have, the licenses that secondary schools have had, essentially anybody on the campus, whether they're education or not education, has had access to software. So we encourage you to do an asset check either using your own software or enlisting us to help you. We've got software that we can use to go out and check your all the computers to see what software is loaded on that, because you may have software that is currently installed on machines that you had no idea was installed, right? And with users you had no idea. So that's step one, is to come up with a quantitative analysis. And here I've just got a couple of examples. I've saved the names, the blacked out area are the names, the actual names associated with these. But two examples of indicating where a product is loaded, where a product is being used, and the different titles that of software that is being used. In some cases, users are using one title. In some cases, are using multiple titles. But we highly encourage you to make that first run. So that gives us a level so that we want to component of it. Okay. The second thing that we highly encourage you to do is share the survey with everybody that is on that list, and maybe other departments, to come up with the actual titles that they may be using. Okay, so it may not always be obvious from the asset check, which titles, but this survey sent out, and again, we can use our own survey monkey, you can use your own survey mechanism, but we share this with you to gather the qualitative information. And the main purpose of this, again, is to understand really three critical things. One is, what title or titles are you using? Okay.
Oh, yeah.
How often are you using the software? Okay. And the third is, and again, this is where we say, what is the frequency of the Autodesk software utilization? Daily, weekly, monthly, once every blue moon, never. Okay, because there may be software loaded and they're not actually using it ever. The third is, do you really need the software? And would a free viewer really, work fine for you? So in other words, I don't really need to do any manipulation. So that gives us a very strong, those two, quantitative and qualitative analysis, give us a really strong basis to start from.
You can't.
Yeah.
Just jump.
Sorry, I think one of my team might have to go on mute. Todd, can you?
Morning. I'm giving more information than me. I get up in the morning and I pray. I go to bed.
Hold on.
I get my shower. I do the morning.
I'm sorry, everybody. Let me see if I can. I apologize. We're multitasking here at Applied Software today. Okay, so I'll stop there. Are there any questions that we should be taking at this point, Linda?
Nope, we're all good.
Okay. Again, just a reminder, if you do have any questions, just please type it into the chat, and again, we'll take it as we go. We'll take it at the end. All right. So, so we take the qualitative and quantitative data that we've gathered, and we come up with, and I don't expect everybody to look at this in detail, and it's not the intent to explain exactly how, but we come up with, a first pass at the number of licenses that we would recommend that, we've derived from using the data to essentially put on a network license and serve up the number of users that you've indicated that you have. And so let me jump over here to this next tab. And this is really, there's a lot on here, and I'm going to try not to go into a lot of detail, but certainly I want to be able to answer any questions that come up. But what we've seen so far is that a perpetual license model, some number of perpetual licenses on a network license configuration seems to make the most sense for universities, both from a being able to offer up a broad type of license, because there's typically not just one title used on any campus. There's typically up to 7 to 8 different titles that are used, and the network configuration allows the university to serve up a far greater number of users who aren't full-time users with a far fewer number of licenses. And there's no rhyme or reason. That's why we do the analysis up front that I described. But from that, we can come up with a pretty good idea of a starting point where we can say that in order to serve up the 25 users that you have using it at these frequencies, you could probably get by with 8 to 12 licenses, and we'll make a guess on the high side and let you guys decide really how to zero in on that. And once we get to that point, we basically say, okay, in order to serve up that number of users with these types of licenses, it typically makes sense to go with one of the suites that you see on this particular screen. And I'll enlarge this just a little bit to make sure that you can see it. Again, no need to get into a lot of detail, but the building design suites include these products, and as you move up the stack and the cost goes up, but additional products are added to that stack. So AutoCAD is the basis for the standard suite, Revit is added, and Navisworks Simulate 3ds Max are added as you get to the premium, and then Navisworks Manage is added. Really the big added value in addition to Inventor as you get up to the Building Suite Ultimate. So this is for the commercial users. These are what the design teams typically use when they're architects and engineers. This is the infrastructure design suite, and this has more of the civil technologies, design technologies as you move up the stack. Okay, and it typically has made the most sense based on the number of users and the types of licenses that our clients have needed to license one of these suites or multiple of these suites, and typically not all. In some cases it's all premium suites. In other cases we see a mix of standard suites and the premium suites and the ultimate suites. Okay, very few ultimate seats, but more premium than standard suites. Okay, and under a perpetual model, which I'll go into more detail on, what perpetual means if we need to toward the end of the session. However, basically perpetual is paying an upfront license fee, subscription maintenance on that license in perpetuity. Okay, and then the network license fee here is as I described, it's an ability to take that and enable that license to be served up from a central server, and as a user, I go check out a license from that particular central server. Important to point out is that, and again, as we get into with you individually, we can get into more detail, but if you check out a license in a suite, if you check out one title, basically all of the titles are checked out, so you can't have one person check out an AutoCAD license and another person check out a license from that particular suite. It's like, kind of works like the Office suite, right? If I'm using Excel, somebody else can't use my work. Okay, so I want to point that out. And like I said, that is where we're seeing most, if not all, of our customers and the education side gravitate to perpetual license on the network. You can license standalone licenses, and it's not a one. Some of the advantages here, it's a little less expensive, not terribly less expensive than other license. But if you do have power users and they're using software all day long, you want to make sure they've got access to a software package. You may want to consider some standards. Some of the deals that we've done recently, they had some Mac users. And,
hey, Mark.
Yes.
Hey, Mark, can I interrupt for a minute? Mark,
Yes.
we are having some audio difficulty. Can you see if you can get a little closer to the mic?
Sure, part of that's probably...
Got a couple complaints here.
Yeah, part of that probably...
Apologize for interrupting.
Sorry? Can everybody hear me now?
Apologize for interrupting. We do have one question.
Yep.
Much better. Much better. Thank you. We did have one question just while I'm interrupting you briefly, and this, I'm sure a lot of people have this question. One person asked, can we keep the older version that we currently have installed, or are we required to remove it?
That's a good question. So under your current license agreement, which is technically gone, right, because the license agreement was, they're not renewing that, but you can use the version that you were last on, that you last had access to, but you can't use back versions, and obviously you can't use newer versions, okay? So we're happy to get into more detail with that individually if you'd like, and look at your own individual requirements. But what we've seen, and again, we've been getting a little bit of ambiguity out of Autodesk, but basically, if you want to continue using a 2014 version that you were on when you, assuming it was 2014, then you can continue using that in perpetuity, but you can't use back versions and you can't use new versions. Okay. And again, I apologize. Part of it is probably my voice. I have been suffering from a little bit of a cold that was exacerbated by traipsing around in Chicago Sunday night through Wednesday in the snow. So I will do my best to make sure I'm speaking up. Another thing I want to make everybody aware of, and this is Autodesk has been very vocal about this recently, making the Wall Street aware of it, but they are moving, have all intentions of moving to a desktop subscription model. And I bring this up because this may be where some of the confusion or questions were coming up around some of the discounts that were being offered to education clients for the software. Shortly after they announced that education clients were going to have to license software in order to get new versions and all the things that license and subscription provide you, they announced that there was a 90% discount on a desktop subscription version or a desktop subscription license specific suites, okay, which all the suites above here were included in that, okay. I bring that up only because I want to make sure that everybody kind of understands that's where that came from. That was a one-time 90% discount for 1 year. After that, all of the clients would have to either license perpetually, or they would have to relicense on a desktop subscription model, which the price obviously goes up dramatically. It goes up 10 times at a particular point. We looked at it, the customers we talked to, that was kind of a Band-Aid. So a lot of the clients that we approached early elected to move very quickly into a license in place that would effectively put them in a perpetual model. I'm not voting one way or the other on this. What we would do is look at both, the perpetual model and the desktop model with you, and determine which is the best long term. Right? Up to this point, I haven't seen where the desktop model makes financial sense based on where we sit today, in early 2015. But as we move forward, the desktop model may make more sense. And a big reason why it doesn't is because you have to have a 1-to-1 ratio of licenses. So if I've got 90 users, I have to have 90 desktop subscriptions. Okay. If I have 90 users under a perpetual model, again, I can maybe serve those up with 25 to 50 licenses. Okay. So so I'll stop there. Are there any questions that we should be taking in regards to any of this that we've covered on the sheet?
Hey, Mark, we are having a little bit of audio problems that I wanted to report, but we do have a number of questions here, and I'm just going to start reading them out from the top, and we'll just take them one by one, okay?
Okay.
Hold on, moving back. We've got somebody who says they're in space management and they only use AutoCAD to track space data and they're not designing anything. And they work for a university. They don't consider themselves for-profit. However, can you address that as whether or not that is educational use or considered by Autodesk as for-profit use?
Yeah, so two separate questions. I think what we would have to do is understand, exactly what you're using the software, and I do understand you're using it for space planning and space tracking. You may be able to get away with a free viewer. I don't know. That's more of a technical question. But back to the business question, even though the school is not for profit, that is not an educational use. So anything that is non-educational use would be considered something that you need a license for. So it's really two separate answers and questions. I would suggest that maybe we take that off, and if we you'll have our contact information here, so please feel free to send an email or give a call, and we can address. And this is an important part of the service that we provide, because if you could get away with a free viewer, then we want you to get away with a free viewer. Our goal is to come up with the most cost-effective way for you to get into this and through this. So again, I'm not going to take on the technical question, but please, whoever asks the question, just send me an email, and we'll have somebody engage on our side to see whether or not an actual license would be required, or there's some other mechanism you can get by.
Okay, the next question goes to kind of this spreadsheet that we're looking at with the different kinds of suites on the top. The question is, can a university client break up a suite and only subscribe to the applications they actually use, AutoCAD, AutoCAD Architecture, Revit, and Map?
The answer is absolutely. You can, in fact, license a individual product. That is totally within your right to do so. And as we go through and do the analysis with our clients, if that makes the most sense, we will, in fact, make that recommendation or provide that as an option. I'll just point out again, the reason why the suites have been so attractive is because you got such a, and I know every university is different, but we've had a large number of users using a broad number of titles or types of software in a low frequency for the most part. So the suites really do a good job, are a cost-effective way of providing the most flexibility at the lowest cost. And I will also remind you, or actually maybe this is a good time to bring this up, that for instance in a building design suite standard, the pricing between a building design suite standard and a standalone AutoCAD is not significant, okay? And same with a building design suite premium and a seat of Revit is not a significant difference. So the flexibility and additional value you get is significant. But the answer is absolutely. You can license all AutoCADs, standalones or network. You can do all Revits. I will also state at this point that 1 year from now, Autodesk has also stated that they will not offer a perpetual license for a standalone product, okay? This is in line with this move toward desktop subscription and moving everything toward desktop subscription. The first line in the sand is going to be February 1st, 2016, where you will not be able to license an AutoCAD or Revit or any standalone Civil 3D or any standalone product on a perpetual license basis. Now, I will also clarify that if you do have a standalone or suite license that's under subscription, you can maintain that perpetual license and pay annual maintenance subscription moving forward. So they're not going to take those licenses out of your hand, but there is the clock is ticking on these standalone products on either, the individual products on a standalone or network basis. Any other questions that we should tackle now, Linda?
This goes to, actually, let's hold off on this one because I know you're going to cover this next one. And then I did have a question is, do state public universities count as government users?
Do they count as government users? They are, well, that's interesting because I think that some of the state universities we've worked with fall under government and others do not, and I think it's really a different issue. And to me, and I'd maybe like to understand a little bit more about the question, but there is a mechanism that I'll hit on here in a bit that allows any state school, any public institution to license their software vis-a-vis a GSA contract that Autodesk holds, okay? And I'll cover that. I mean, that is the way that the University of Florida licensed their software. And it actually helped them avoid having to go through the procurement process because they were able to buy off a GSA schedule. So if your school is able to buy off a GSA schedule, then what I'm going to share with you in a little bit here may be of value to you because it will help you eliminate going through all the fiery hoops of going out for bid and things of that nature. Okay, but then I've been told that other universities and other states cannot buy off a GSA schedule. They're not technically considered government. So I think we rely on you guys to tell us that, and that's the only thing that really matters to us is that if you can buy off a GSA schedule, then we've got a mechanism for you to do that. If you don't, then we work with you on a commercial basis, and either way is fine with us.
All right, we do have a couple of other questions, but I think you're going to cover them, so go on with the rest of your presentation.
Okay, I hope so. Okay, so subscription benefits I wanted to cover real quickly. This is, the reason I go into this detail, because I found when we were talking to some of the schools, it was like, some of the things that were obvious to us and other customers that have been familiar with this for years and years weren't really familiar with it. So basically, I'm going to go through this quickly, but hopefully, answer any questions. So essentially, the primary benefits of Autodesk subscription and on a perpetual basis are immediate access to upgrades. Okay, and when we say upgrades, that's getting new versions from the 2015 version to the 2016 version that will be coming out, right? If you're not on subscription, you do not have access to the newer version of the software, okay? The other benefit is that if you're on subscription, and this is really as effective this week, you can upgrade your license to a higher version. So you can go from a previous sheet with the suites on it, a standard to a premium suite, premium to an ultimate suite. So if your university is moving from an AutoCAD workflow to a Revit workflow over time, you can upgrade those licenses at a fairly low fee. If you're not on subscription, there's no upgradability of those licenses at all. Basically, if you ever want to get to the current license, you have to license a basically brand new title of software. Okay. With that, you have some flexible licensing rights that include being able to run 3 years prior versions, which is very valuable because you're not always getting the most current version, and you may be running 2015, but some of your design partners may be using 2014. You also get home use rights, so your users have the ability to use a copy of the software at home, as well as extended territory rights, which allows you to take the software out of the country for short periods of time if you need to do so. I think it's 90 days. You get unlimited online and web support direct with Autodesk, and there are some additional cloud and software services that you have available to you, like storage on the A360 site, and some additional software services around energy analysis and such. So that's evolving all the time. So are there any questions in regards to subscription and what that means? Or as you might have seen in the previous slide, it's subscription equals, and it's not the same for every product, but it is close to, it's somewhere between 11 and 15% of the SRP license fee on an annual basis. And every year that would come due for those licenses that you have on subscription. And again, for those licenses on subscription, you get these benefits. Okay. Any questions, Linda? let me jump over here. The works of universities back in the August timeframe, we stressed that let's not just focus on facility because that's what Autodesk is saying. Autodesk came out and basically said all facility use. Well, that was kind of, people thought, well, that's just facilities management department. What we're finding out is that, there are reports, and not in all cases, but in a lot of cases, departments, and this just an example of the different departments that were using the software, and then ultimately what they decided to license when it was all said and done. And in most cases, I'm not speaking, but so far, the way that the the education clients have paid for these licenses is they've gone to, because it was an unbudgeted expense, obviously. Nobody was really counting on this happening at the beginning of the year. But they basically went to every department and got them to fund their portion of the software. Okay. One thing I do want to point out here, and this is where this becomes really your call, but facilities is obvious, but research is a area where we can provide you language that basically is the Autodesk coverage for the free software. But if you are doing research and it's for-profit, which in this particular university it was the case, it was for-profit, and their attorneys took a look at the language and they took a look at what they were doing, and they determined that, in fact, that what they were doing would require a license. So in this case, they did. Now, that's not going to be in all cases, but I would say it's one area that you may want to look at and just make sure that if your research is not for profit, then free software. If it is for profit, well, then technically you need to license. Okay, pay for that license. Any questions? I mean, this is pretty straightforward, but are there any questions? Okay. So once we get through all that, we would basically come up with a first pass draft proposal, which provides you a recommendation. And again, this is not us going into a hole. We talked to you a little bit about it. We say, okay, in this particular case, and these are all SRP prices, and you would be better with these prices, so I don't want these to knock you off your chair. But basically, in this case, it was 10 building design suite standards, which was the lower end license over here. In this case, 28 building design suite premiums. And the infrastructure design suite premium for the civil users. They had one civil user, and then a infrastructure design suite ultimate, which was the best way to go because they needed Navisworks managed in this particular case. So I don't want to spend a lot of time on this, but everybody's draft and first proposal is going to look a little bit different. And I just want you to know this is just the next step in this process that has worked real well. And then from there, what we'll do, and this really doesn't have anything in it, but we do want to do a cost analysis of both, what that configuration looks like under a network license model. So this is all network licenses. So this is effectively 38, 40 licenses, and this is a license fee, and this is a subscription fee. With the 40 licenses to serve up, some number of licenses under a network license, and then we'll do the comparison. Again, this doesn't show you anything because I wanted to protect. I had some data in here from an actual customer, didn't feel comfortable with that, but we'll do an analysis that says, okay, over a 3, 4-year period, 5-year period, here's what your cost projection would be if you went with a desktop subscription. Here's what it would be if you went with a perpetual network license model or some combination of network and standalone licenses. This is what I was referring to. DLT Solutions is the master government reseller for Autodesk. We have been for 14 years. We've had a relationship with them for that long. They hold the GSA schedule for Autodesk, and the contract number is this. So if you need any additional information or need a letter from GSA stating this was actually pulled from a letter that was sent to one of our clients. And that client was then able to take this to procurement, effectively avoid having to go through the typical procurement process because they were able to buy a GSA contract. So,
Hey, Mark. Mark, we're getting a few questions again about what is considered educational use and what is considered not educational use. You want to go through that again?
Okay. Well, maybe the best thing for me to do there is go back to this. So this is an actual university, and these are not the actual numbers of licenses. They're pretty close. But these are the departments that are using the software. So in capital planning and space management, those are they're not teaching anybody in that department. They're using the software. In this case, up to 9 licenses for their capital planning and space management use. Facilities, the same thing. Research. So I think it probably makes sense to look at these departments. Now, anything that is directly used by a professor to teach a student, that is going to be considered educational use. So there's not, in my mind, there's not a lot of gray area. In going through this process with now probably 10 different significant major universities, which we've achieved license agreements with a number of those, there hasn't been a lot of ambiguity. So it's really, if it's used in the classroom to teach, or it's used in research that's not for profit, that would be considered educational use under the free model. If it's for the daily operations of the university and in this case the executive office, College of Sciences, I don't know, environmental health and safety, facilities research, Office of Information Technology, those are not directly used for education use. I hope that clears it up. We just haven't, once we've gotten into this process, there hasn't been a whole lot of ambiguity about it. I mean, it's really, if you're teaching with it, fantastic, it's free. And the students can download the software free as well. They don't have to get it from the university. They can go directly to the academic site and download software with a EDU email address. And if there's any, please let me remind everybody, if there's any questions that are lingering, you'll have our contact information. I want you to make sure that you reach out to us. I'll put that up there now so you guys can do a screen capture and write it down. Next question.
That's all the questions that we have here, but please post them if you've got them and let us know. Oh, here comes another one. Right, here comes another one. Would it be considered educational use if a student is using Autodesk as part of his or her internship?
Would it be, I would say, if you're doing work for a commercial company, you're using the software for the commercial benefit as part of that internship, then it would not be considered education use, and you would have to license the software if you're producing, work that would be, paid for, right? Now, I know that that is probably a little bit of a gray area, and
so, Mark, we did get a little bit of a. Got a little bit more specific from this questioner. The internship is required as part of his or her curriculum, and the internship is on campus. And you might want to mention that the academic licenses, well, I'll mention it since I'm thinking of it, the academic licenses, when you print something out, it's going to have watermarks on it that says for educational use only.
Well, can one of my team members confirm that? Because I don't think that's the case any longer.
Oh, no? Okay.
Yeah, I don't think that's the case any longer. So specific to answer that question, I would say that your student is probably safe because it's a, I'm assuming it's a short, period of time, and it doesn't matter, but, 3 months or whatever it might be. It's on campus and it's part of their, required curriculum. I would say they could get by with that. I would say that if they were working for a, private firm or public firm over the summer, and they were, doing work that was of value to their customers, that was, technically that commercial business would be responsible for providing that student a license. And that's one of the cool things about not to get off on a tangent, but that's one of the cool things about the desktop subscription license is that, if I'm an architecture firm and I hire 5 summer interns to come to my firm and do work, I can ramp those 5 guys up, or 5 guys and gals up, by licensing a 3-month term desktop subscription license for AutoCAD or Revit or whatever I want to license for them. So I would say your specific question, I would say your student is probably fine. The software police are not going to come swooping down on him or her for that. Any other questions?
We don't have any more here in the chat box.
Okay. Sorry for the technical. I don't know how much of it was my voice and how much of it was just technology in general. But I want to thank everybody for joining us, and I highly encourage you to either send Dave or I our 2 contact information. Our email addresses are up here and phone numbers. But feel free to reach out to us. Just put it maybe in the subject that you're on the webinar, so we can quickly respond and make sure that we respond to you. We would be happy to work with you. I want to stress that this process that we've gone through with universities has been very successful. It's not always a quick process. I mean, it's taken anywhere between 5 months and 2 months to get through this, but it takes a dedication, on really both sides. And so we're dedicated to help you, and I hope that we have an opportunity to help each and every one of you if you're in a position of believing that you need someone to help you. So with that, unless there's any other questions, we will sign off, and we hope to hear from each and every one of you soon. Thank you.